Welcome to Straight Talk. A New Zealand apple a day should tempt the taste buds of Australians who've fought successfully to keep our exports out for more than 80 years. But not anymore. The World Trade Organisation has opened the Aussie supermarket shelves to our apples. What will it mean for our hard-pressed pipfruit industry? And should federated farmers have delayed signing the accord to clean up the Manawatu River? What are they thinking? Over in the UK, revelations that meat and milk from cloned animals may have got into the food chain have New Zealand shoppers asking, could it happen here? Today I'm joined by Duncan Bridgeman, journalist with the National Business Review, and Jeff Smith, the editor of Straight Furrow. Well, Jeff, this decision, what difference is it actually going to mean based on the fact the Australians have already said they're appealing it? It's back to the same old no-go.
It's the same old, and it's not really about the threat, it's about politics. It's simply about politics.
So you don't think it's going to be any different this time round? It's just a continuation of the old saga?
They'll find another way to delay.
Yeah. What do you think, Duncan? This is a fairly strong recommendation ruling from the WTO, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a partial victory. It's one step in a long road. It's been, I mean, as you say, they've been locked out for 80 years, and I think news today that the Australians are going to appeal it is confirmation that it's a very difficult situation for the New Zealand apple industry, and for Tim Grocer, who really needs to get some political credit behind him after having run afoul with the credit card spending issues. So he'll be looking to really get some momentum.
But Jeff, how much more money, time and effort can New Zealand really put into this fight that's been going on for this length of time? It's really become more about the issue rather than the substance of the sales of pipfruit we might make over the ditch, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's just WTO is like many of these world bodies that if they don't have these things to do, what do they have to do? So they can make them themselves. The appeal system should be over by Christmas, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the
Australians go on well beyond that.
Come up with something else, some other restriction, or all in the name of biosecurity, when it's pretty clear it's all in the name of politics.
And Duncan, the fact that the Australians are in the middle of an election campaign, obviously that might delay things somewhat as well, mightn't it, based on the fact it'll take a while for new government to settle down and find its feet and so forth. Yeah,
that's right, and there'll be new appointments to be made within the jurisdiction of horticulture, agriculture area, and depending on what their leanings are, it could get tougher, or it could open the door a bit further for us. You know, we've got some great products to get to export there, and I think the Australian consumer may be interested in our apple varieties. So we've got good technology that are producing some really good varieties at the moment. So it really comes down to the lobbyists over there, which are pretty powerful, and they'll be doing what they can to stop it. But as you say, the ruling's an important one.
Right. Certainly, Jeff will be wanting to give Australians more choice by way of, as Duncan says, the new varieties of apples that have been produced here. But what sort of shape generally is the pipfruit industry in to take advantage of this new market? They've been through some pretty tough times after deregulation here, haven't they?
Well, I don't know that it's going to be any great advantage to them. It's certainly not in the short term. I mean, it's still, even if everything went smoothly today, it'll be 2 years.
What do you think, Duncan? You think Jeff's correct to take a pretty cautious approach on this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they are struggling at the moment, the pipfruit industry, and returns have been down. Margins are squeezed. Costs of production have gone up. So what this is more about, I think, because it is quite a small market in terms of the overall export take, but it's more about a stepping stone into new markets, and I think this could provide a precedent for further agreements through into Asia as well.
Because Tim Grocer has specifically mentioned China, hasn't he?
That's right.
Is that really the big prize that New Zealand pipfruit growers should have their eyes on?
Oh, absolutely, and I think not just for pipfruit, but for all sectors, and you know, there's a big push to get up into Asia, take advantage of the opportunities that market presents. There's, you know, millions of people coming out of poverty there, and also getting a presence there is you have to be there sort of ahead of other countries.
Right. Now, Jeff, if pit fruit exports could go into China in larger quantities than at present, is New Zealand going to face the same issue in terms of the dairy industry that's fronting up at the moment with Chinese investors wanting to buy land here? Is there likely to be a similar situation with Chinese investors wanting to buy land, grow their own pit fruit to export to their home market?
That's an interesting question, but I think that in a country where we're pulling out orchards, it's hardly likely that the Chinese are going to come here and want to start from scratch.
What do you think, Duncan?
Well, I think the Chinese are, at the moment, are more interested in dairy, and that's where their focus is. They, there's no doubt, though, that the more that that New Zealand gets up into China and perhaps starts growing own product, creating dairy farms and so on, it makes it harder for us to say, you know, sit back and say, no, you're not allowed to come here.
Right.
And I think that's a big political issue at the moment with a lot of xenophobia in terms of the Chinese here.
Yeah. Is that the way you see it, Jeff, xenophobia?
Yeah, there's an interesting point that I'd like to make here, and when we're talking about the Chinese coming in here and growing their own apples or producing their own dairy fruit. I personally am involved with a New Zealand company that owns land and plant in China, makes all the product in China, grows the plants, has contracts with all the farmers, owns the factory and exports it to the United States and to Europe and hopefully soon to the Middle East. And it's New Zealand product. It's registered as a New Zealand product.
Right. So what you're saying is that in order to have that level of enterprise happening in China, we need to be a bit freer in letting Chinese investment come into New Zealand?
Well, hey, Chinese investment is one thing, buying land is another. And the interesting fact is that in the top 20 purchases of land in New Zealand in the last 5 years, China doesn't even rate. So this xenophobia thing that you go and have a look who owns the land: Americans, English, Russians, Romanians, Italians, and so where is the argument?
What do you think, Duncan? I mean, based on the fact the government seems to have taken fright rather with its review of the Overseas Investment Office, doesn't it?
Yeah, again, and it's probably a reaction to the feedback that the public are expressing through through media and so on. I don't think the government can really do much, you know, to stop the process. You know, they can tighten up the rules, which they have done, and but at the end of the day, you know, if there's not the capital here to invest in manufacturing or in agricultural production,
it's got to come from somewhere, doesn't it?
It's got to come from somewhere, and we've seen that with dairy factories down in Canterbury, and the potential of the Crayford Farm empire to be sold off to Chinese interests. Right.
Well, moving on, the Manawatu River, Jeff, the Federated Farmers, they were going to sign the agreement to clean it up, then they delayed. What's the story here? What's happening? What's their thinking?
That's not my understanding that it was going to be signed. What I do know is that within 2 days of them being informed of what the council over there was going to do, the whole document was made public. So that's hardly a consultation period. And they've taken the line that they need to. It's vitally important to their members, so why shouldn't they take the required time to get some feedback?
Right. So the objection is more about the process rather than the end outcome, is it?
There's no objection to that I can ascertain to the content of what they're trying to do. It's the timing and the process, almost like an ambush. To say, come on, you guys are the ones that are making all the contribution to the mess in the river, when in factual fact it's the council themselves that put tens of thousands of litres of sewage into the river every day. And then they expect the Federated Farmers to go and put their name to a piece of paper saying they support the idea. I'm sure they do support the idea, but they're suspicious of the timing. There's local body elections coming up
Sure, yes,
in a
that
few
will
weeks'
be effective.
time.
Yeah.
Why is this all of a sudden happening when it's been going on and on for years?
Yeah. But Duncan, it doesn't look very good for the Federation, does it, to be backing off doing something when the general public have in their mind very much dirty dairying campaigns by Fish and Game and so forth?
I'm not so sure about that. I think you have to be very careful that you don't rush into things just because there's pressure out there, and you know, you need to be 100% sure like if you're going to go down that path. I mean, who is responsible, and we're talking about big costs here to farmers. So
yes.
so it's you know, you want to make sure that that everything is rightly done before you jump into it, and we've seen that with other sort of issues.
Well, I think the Clean Streams Accord, that was signed up to by Fonterra, wasn't it, before farmers really had seen the fine print and agreed with all the detail. Do you think farmers were worried they were looking at a similar situation here, Jeff?
Well, what I don't understand is people saying that they have refused to sign it.
They're just delaying.
There's nowhere they've said they've refused to sign it. They're simply saying give us time to consider it, just like any other thing.
And so while they may well sign it, they just need more time
to consult their members. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to them actually sitting down at the table and doing the deed. Coming up after the break, we talk about how the Russian grain crisis will affect our farmers and plenty more. See you soon. Now it's on to You Said It, comment in the ag media, which we want to talk about further. Now, Duncan, the suggestion that the grain crisis in Russia might be a big benefit to perhaps our dairy and beef industries here, based on the fact that they are mainly pasture-based rather than being grain-fed. That's good news, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's the old story of a loss for someone is a gain for someone else, and perhaps this is a good boost for our pastoral sector at a time when commodity prices are coming back, and I'm talking specifically dairy here. And we are very good at producing grass into milk, and that's what we're known for. So the price of grain going up overseas will raise the costs of producing milk, and so we could be at a more competitive advantage.
Yes, well, that has to be good. Now, Jeff, suggestions in the UK as regards customers being very concerned about the fact that some cloned meat and possibly milk has got into the food chain, as reported on the Country 99 TV website. Do New Zealand consumers need to be worried about this happening here? Well,
we have cloned cows in New Zealand at Ruakura Research Institute, but they're only used for research. I don't think there's any suggestion that they would ever be let loose for production purposes.
And there are some very strict protocols around them under the IRMA
absolutely.